Hi folks, Dan and Bob here with episode 5 of Teybidee Park. This time we're building an entry info stop. It's intended to be a small building, not terribly big, and relatively simple. I eventually decide that as simple as it is, it's too simple, so I want to build up to it. And I did that and then sat with it for a little while, decided that it wasn't quite right, wasn't looking quite right to me, and did sort of a third iteration. And there is no video between the second and the third, so sorry about that. I do have some stills at the end that I will point out the differences on. So I'm trying here to keep it in line with the other buildings on this side of the ticketing area. And so the same materials and some of the same kinds of architectural approaches. The columns on the corner with the stone, the concrete blocks and the sandstone, and as you'll see in a bit, the roof as well with its slope. Uh, that gets modified again with that third iteration just to make it a little bit more interesting. Um, there's the whole plaza area you can see there. It will be coming to focus in a little bit. Um, I'm not intending this to have a full interior, just enough to draw the guests in with a module and perhaps give something different than the outside walls when you look in through the windows. So time to change the colors on the metal wall bits and get it looking a little bit more like those other buildings. And proceeding on toward the roof once I raise that little bit of an area. In the other buildings, somewhere in them, they've got this kind of change of slope roof, and I wanted to do that again here. But just a little bit of different. It's going to be a little bit different still by the end. Anyway, after playing with the entrance here and giving it double doors, going to start to work on some of the patio, if you will, area to the left of the building. And there I want to set up an area for a non-functional feature where there would be animal talks by members of the staff, sort of a little introductory kind of thing for the guests before they actually get into the park. Anyway, that starts with some benches for them to sit on and a sunshade for the speaker and something for the speaker to sit down. That three-legged stool, sorry, that stool is something that I made as a prefab, and so I pulled it in here. Same with that electrical box, which will be disappearing before the end of the build. So I'm looking for something, finding not quite it, and throwing it away from my prefabs. And I decided now was the time to line up the building with the path and do some of the rearranging of the trees around it. Uh, I need to have a fence here. We don't want the guests wandering out into the unfinished portions of the park. So that doesn't need to be anything fancy. I wanted to keep it a little simple. And the elaboration ends up being a non-functional gate for the staff to get to the back of the building. Um, you'll see me fuss my way through that. Uh, why? Now. Um, after of course, I make some backstage stuff there, widening that little bit of path and setting out trash bins and a hose for cleanup after the animal talks. Um, maybe someday we will have actual animal talks in the game, and that would be cool, and I could replace this stuff. Right now, it's just getting our little crowny logo, something that I eventually decide I'm not satisfied with, particularly after I see it at night Um, and you will see how I address that a little bit later. I did decide to get fussy enough to put in hinges and a latch system on the gate just for a little bit of verisimilitude. Uh, Most people will never see it if they don't see this video because they'll tend to follow the paths and wander around the park. And from the path side, it's invisible. So I was having a little trouble keeping the color correct on some of the wall. That does happen. Um, it is still in early access, and a lot of things are still being fussed with by the developers. And it will get better. It's been getting better, and I have perfect faith that it will continue to do so. Um, so after setting up the fences and getting them squared up a little bit better, I think that's the time I played a little bit with more of the backstage. Put a canopy on there. You'll notice the electrical box is already gone. Um, and I don't think I ever got around to putting a light back there, which they should have. Some planters that were prefab I built for myself. I'm going to turn one over because I got another plant on it. The My headcanon parks are all built by Paleogenes, and their first revival animal was a mammoth. So part of the game here is to always have a mammoth somewhere around there, even if there are no mammoths in the park proper. This is the module that I told you about before. It's a shop module because we don't have an info module just yet. And you just may have caught me making that electrical box go away. Um, but I did want to kind of hide the fact that the module was a shop module. So I wanted to cover that up. Just a little bit of unnecessary work when all is said and done. And then a little bit more planning with landscaping. This is when I thought this simple building was going to be it. And as we're about to see, it's going to turn out not to be it. Uh, Starting by expanding the coverage for our staff to give their animal talks. And now we're in the second part of the build. You can see I have made a round area. The idea was to punch out the front of the building and give it this circular element to increase the architectural variation involved. So you'll watch me fiddle with walls, trying to get them lined up and in place and adjusted to right dimensions around it. And it was a little bit of fussy work and took a while. It also took a while adjusting the roof to try to get it to play nicer with it, which ultimately I decided it never really did. And that led to Mark III. Uh, as I get deeper into this park, we'll see a lot more animals, obviously, and some more buildings out here on this side of the ticketing booth. Um, this is all being recorded well ahead because real life is demanding a lot of my attention right now. And I will be offline for a bit, possibly even when this premieres. Uh, anyway, I think one of the next things I'll do in the park is another early stage animal, mostly to fill out the early stage area on the other side of the ticketing. Um, so unless the devs surprise with something really cool in the updates, the plan is to do that habitat. And that will be just next to the refreshment plaza that, if you've seen the other videos, you know is lurking out there. Um, so, yeah, I do have plans. Do want to continue the park. Um, Sorry that this build ended up taking so long for what was supposed to be a simple building, but it did. And sometimes that's just the way it rolls. Um, and On the whole, that usually means it ultimately is better. The building ends up looking better. The park ends up looking better because the buildings are better. And overall, I tend to end up happier. Um, so, you know, as much as it's kind of has its awkwardness when you're going through it, it gets better. So I decided to spiff up the talk area by um, giving a platform for our animal stars made with special pieces um, and a little cabinet for the staff to keep the tools of their trade to do these talks, and made from various pieces, and similar to the, uh, the glass-fronted cabinet that you may have saw go by earlier in the video. Uh, I think once we finally get Steam support, I'll probably put some of those things up uh, and let you all have a chance to have them in your park if you want to. So this is a standing board to announce what goes on here. The white thing on the wall is obviously a whiteboard, right? Probably also can be used as a screen. Not that there will be a functional version of that in game. This is all sort of an implied activity area, uh, and I hope it conveys well enough. Anyway, here's the big jump. We're looking from the entrance toward the info shop straight ahead, and a little bit of an overhead. You can see I went from a round extension to an oval one and extended the roof out over the animal talk area and put some detail into the sign, a frame for the whiteboard, all to make it look a little more realistic. Shot from the back, which has now been changed to all cinder blocks with an air conditioning unit as well. And then we'll get a nighttime shot with the mammoth having been moved over to fit better. I hope you all found something of interest here in this video. I'll be back with more. Drop a like if you think it's worth it, and subscribe if you're liking the sort of thing I do. You all take care. Be kind to each other out there.